a trip to the National Air Force Museum. So I did something really interesting this fall break. I went to the National Air Force Museum in Dayton, Ohio. And it's the National Air Force Museum because that's where the Wright brothers are from, and they're the ones that started the whole invention of the airplane and got the first plane up in the air. And so of course the National Air Force Museum was placed in Dayton, Ohio, where they're from. And so when we got there, this was the view that we got from the outside when we were driving up to it. And you'll notice that there's a barbed wire fence, and that's because while it is a museum, it also still functions as a active Air Force base. And so obviously they have to have barbed wire so that not just anyone can go in there. When we got inside, I gave a donation so I could get a little map, and then at the end I got to have a 24 by 36 inch version souvenir of the map to remember my visit there. And so towards the beginning, when we were in the zone of the museum with the World War II stuff, we saw this plane, which is called the Backscar. And this is actually the plane that dropped the atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And so here's a different view of it. And then we also got to see some life-size models of those bombs. So this is the little boy, and this is the one that was dropped on Hiroshima. And this is Fat Man, which is the one that was dropped on Nagasaki. And I thought those are both pretty cool, and it's pretty cool to see the actual plane that dropped those bombs. It wasn't a model or anything, it was the real thing. So another plane that we saw which would probably be my favorite, if not second favorite there, was the Blackbird, or SR-71 Blackbird. And this is very well known as the fastest plane in the world. And it can go more than Mach 3, which means it can go over 2,200 miles per hour. And its record, and also its retiring flight, actually it went from New York to somewhere in California on the West Coast in just over an hour. And so that is insanely fast. And here's a different long ways view, pano view of the plane. And what was kind of crazy is this plane, obviously when you go over Mach 3, you need a lot of fuel. And so what was kind of crazy was, in order to get it more fuel when it was being used by the military back then, it's been retired obviously, the pilot had to take the plane so that it was flying as slow as possible, and they had to take this other big plane that you can see here, and they had to fly it as fast as it could go, and then they would run a little pipe thing down to get the fuel to the plane so that they wouldn't have to stop. So that's pretty cool, fueling up in midair, going pretty darn fast still, even though it's not Mach 3 anymore. And here's a view of the whole plane. It's pretty cool. It's pretty sleek plane with the engines close together and not long wings like normal passenger planes. And another really cool plane that I really like and know somewhat well is the B-2 Spirit Bomber. And those are the really weird ones with the V shape and then the different zigzags. And I know those are very expensive planes. I actually looked it up, and each one is over $1 billion, so they're not cheap. And here's a better view of it from up, and from below it actually looked kind of fake, but when you got this view, it actually looks very much real. And so probably my second or favorite plane was the Valkyrie, and this is actually a research and development plane that they used they really didn't use. There used to be two, but one of them actually crashed, so this is actually the only one in the world. And it's kind of funny because most of the planes that were in this room at the museum were the only ones in the world, or one of like a couple. And so here's those six giant propulsion things in the back. And you can see how far the nose of the plane goes forward without anything touching the ground, so that's pretty cool. Here's a better view of that. And we also got to go in and see an old Air Force One plane that used to belong to the president. I forget which one. And yeah, here's a different view. And then we saw some other things, but soon after that, after going to the gift shop, which is where I got a little Blackbird model plane, we headed home, and that was it.